So this is Johann Looper version 3. Uh, it's hopefully everything that you liked about the previous version of Johann Looper with a little bit more. So I'm going to begin with the changes that are in this if you're familiar with the patch, so that you can sort of see what those are, and then I'll talk a little bit more about what the patch is in general afterward. So the first and most notable change is that there are a couple of controls on the front page, one of which is a delay level. And this controls the volume and feedback level of a delay that precedes the loopers. The idea there is that it allows sort of more of a extension of the loopers to occur. So this audio that I played in will be looped kind of by the delay line and fed into those loopers over and over again as long as it regenerates. If you compare that to no delay, which is what the previous iterations of this patch had, you can see how it creates sort of a longer lasting sound. The other control right next to it is a tone control. This is a tilt EQ, so as you turn it toward positive values, the highs will be boosted and the lows will be cut. So I like boosting the highs just a little bit. It gives you some more flexibility for sitting Johann Looper into a mix. Along with that, there's a couple of changes to the stomp switches. So first, the pad loops. These are loops that record the output of the sort of main arpeggiating loopers. And the idea is to sort of create a texture bed or something that can be played over. You'll notice that when I record a pad loop, this pixel here lights up. The next time I press this stomp switch, it'll turn off. And in the first versions of this patch, I lamented the fact that there was no way to sort of reset or wipe the loops other than just recording silence into them. But this doesn't really reset them. What it does is that there's a flip-flop associated with the stomp switch, and every other time it gets pressed, it opens up a VCA. So when it's off, no sound is heard from it, but and that flip-flop will stay open until the next time I hit the stomp switch. So it's kind of like a mute. The other change to the stomp switches is this stomp switch used to mute various loops. You could press it to flip through the different loop combinations. But now it will hold what's in the buffer of the loops, and that's tied to the clock. It'll start doing that at the next clock beat after you press it, and you'll see the lights disappear because the lights represent what loop is currently being recorded. 1, 2, 3, 4. So nothing is being recorded in this case, and so they disappear until you press it again. So that's another way to sort of like capture some like thing if you want to play over that, or you know, just sort of like sometimes I do that to sort of build tension and release. The other change that occurs in this version is that instead of mixes, there are levels for the dry, the wet, and then the pad loops. And just in my revisions of patches, I found that this is an easier way to sort of control what's going on. The left stomp switch still sets tap tempo, and there is a clock divider on this second page if you want to change the relationship to the clock, incoming clock. It also accepts MIDI clock. MIDI clock will override the tap tempo. The other big change here is that there are some controls that were previously sort of buried in the patch that are now available to you. So you can control the pitch of the various loopers. You could set the reverse condition or playback direction of them before, but I've just sort of put those things together now so you can experiment with how these different loops interact. You know, you could have them ascending in pitch, or, you know, half of them moving forward and half moving in reverse, or whatever you wanted to do. And then these lights, which used to represent the condition of this stomp switch selector, are now mutes for each of these tracks. So we can sort of thin out what's happening. And that's pretty much Johann Looper version 3. There's some under the hood stuff. I did some things to improve the stereo imaging of the patch. There's some other sort of minor, you know, improvements hopefully to the signal path and processing and that sort of thing to make it more stable and whatnot. But I wanted to sort of keep the basic form with just adding a couple of hopefully beneficial improvements. You know, these came out of my own use of the patch. So, you know, it was things that I had already started tinkering with in terms of modding what already existed. So I feel pretty confident about their utility. But yeah, hopefully this is good if you already like the patch and want to try a little bit more, or if you're new to it. I did say I'd talk a little bit about how this patch works. So what it does is there are 4 loops, 3 of which are playing back at any given point, and 1 which is being recorded. And they move in a sequential order. So you get these opportunities to have different sounds at different pitches, and playback directions follow one another. But they also go through these VCAs, which are set up in quadrature. So even though all 3 loops are playing at once, you know, a quadrature LFO will be at different phases at the same time, all the different iterations of it. So when one of the loops is sort of at its loudest, others will be rising or falling in terms of amplitude. So it creates this combination of sort of pitch effects, but also amplitude effects that, in my experience, has a kind of orchestral quality. You know, it sort of sounds like some different instruments are playing along with you, which was the intention of this patch, to sort of create an accompaniment to what you were playing. And that's Johann Looper. After this, the VCAs go into that tone control and then into a fully wet hall reverb, which is part of the charm here too. They get smeared out by that. And some of the distinctiveness of the loops gets rubbed off. But that is the patch. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope you have a good day and take care.